Hey class, welcome to your fourth module. Things have been going pretty well. First three modules, people have been turning in assignments on time, um, doing the art assignments earlier in the week, remembering that can help facilitate the discussion board a little bit better. People can talk about those assignments as they're turned in, and that just helps get more discussion going on those discussion boards rather than waiting until that due date. Um, Yeah, so things are pretty much straightforward on the module as far as the workload. This module, same thing as far as the reading, lecture, art assignment, and discussion board. We're going to be doing blind contours this week. Excited to see how those turn out. What I did want to talk about mostly on this video is the two final projects. We've talked a little bit about the interpretive paper already, but I wanted to go over the rubric. Um, As you can see here, it is out, the paper's out of 50 points. The biggest amount of those points is going to be kind of focused on critically analyzing three pieces within the show. If there's three or more, I'd prefer you to kind of dive deeper into three. Remember, this is a show that you are going to in person during this class. It is a visual art show, and you do have to provide proof of that. It could be a photo of the show or a show card or something like that. Um, but going out and seeing art is going to be a big part of this project, and then writing the paper afterwards. Overall style, obviously, throughout the entire class, we've uh, written incomplete sentences, we've stayed in the same verb tense, we've stayed coherent throughout our writing, and actually, I've been pleasantly surprised. Most of you guys are pretty good writers. But remember that most of this paper is your own analysis of a show, going out to a show, and just give me what you think about it. Remember, it doesn't really matter if you like the show or not. Sometimes papers are more interesting when people kind of don't like the show, and they can critically analyze why they don't like the show or specific works, or maybe they like some work and some other work not as much. Yeah, that's all good. That makes good for a good paper. And then sort of the last category here is formal qualities within the work, using proper terminology as far as the formal qualities um, that we've talked about throughout the class. So using those vocabulary words within the discussion of three pieces from the show, moving forward. Okay, good. So as far as interpretive paper, hopefully that is fairly straightforward. Do you remember that is required that you go to a show during the semester and you're going to write about that show. COD usually has options depending on the semester you're taking this class. I will have posted those options, either an artist talk or a more permanent show that they have at the Cleve Carney Art Gallery in the Mac building. But there's also all of that Chicago art news that I've linked also in the folder, interpretive paper. A bunch of options there. Okay, good. So the other thing I want to talk about mostly in this video, besides touching on the interpretive paper again, is the final project. Remember that both the paper and the final project are due on the last day of class, the same day that the fifth module will be due. The final project for this class, besides the paper, is a curation of an exhibition. So here we go. For your final project, you'll be curating a hypothetical exhibition based on your artistic interests. I want you to find work, and I'm going to be going over a very easy way of looking at a great art database. Google has some really good resources. And picking a show based around your own interests. Now, a lot of people, when they make their exhibition, they just focus it around an art movement, like Cubism or Expressionism. My example is over pop art, but it could be something other than that. It could be, as you see, similar medium choices, narratives, formal qualities, color choices, size, texture, time periods, right, etc. So a lot of people kind of focus on just an art movement that they liked during the class and they base it off that, but it could be more than that. And I encourage you to think more creatively as you're planning your show. The show will have 15 pieces, and you're going to include a bunch of information here. It is a lot of information there, but Google Arts is a great resource for all that. Um, and you're going to come up with a specific location and draw a basic blueprint for the show. This can be done by hand or with a digital program. I used Microsoft Paint for mine. That should be fairly standard on most computers. You can do it by hand, but I'm not looking for too much there, but I will explain that here shortly. And then the presentation will be submitted either as a PowerPoint submission, and in all caps, it says save as a PDF. That's really important, just for file size. So as you're saving at the end, save as PDF or as a Google Doc. Those would be the two acceptable submission formats. Then we have some sort of slide organization here and sort of some cues to kind of get you going on thinking about what you might do for your show. So I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth here. If we go back here and we go to Google Arts and Culture, you will see there's a lot of different ways of diving into this project. It could just be through artists, it could be a medium choice. Art movements is a great place to start. And then you can just kind of dive into anything that you are interested in. Maybe you say Cubism's cool. I like Picasso. You come in here, and there's different ways of looking up images. We'll go, no thanks. This is kind of just like a random smorgasbord of images, which can be a really good way of maybe seeing something new or something that you maybe didn't expect. But then there's also ways of looking within Cubism and looking at specific artists. So if we go here, I think this is a Braque. No, it's a Delaney. This could be a great image if you're looking at a Cubist image. And remember, we're looking for all the information, which is down here on all of these images. When planning your show, you're going to use Google Arts as the resource. And here's an example of the show. Remember, all this is on Blackboard. So peruse this at your own liking. So first slide is going to be an introduction to the show. Title, very basic. Then when we come back here, I'm going to kind of go bouncing back and forth here. You're going to be what the show is about on your second slide, 5 to 8 sentences. We talk about my show, Poptastic. Then we do, on the third slide, my gallery layout. I did this on Microsoft Paint. Very basic layout. Mine's just a rectangle, and there is a door to kind of think about how this space could actually exist. Yours can be a rectangle, or it could be something much more grand or extravagant. I've had very large spaces, kind of micro spaces. I've had mazes. Yeah, so all sorts of fun stuff. I've had multiple levels before. You start on one level and you kind of go upstairs. So kind of whatever you want on this. Your imagination is kind of the only limitation, as long as it kind of works. Now, with all the information that I'm looking for, as far as title, size, medium, date, all that, there are going to be sizes on these when I'm including that information. But I'm definitely not going to come in here and be trying to measure and looking for some sort of ratio or something like that. So as long as it kind of makes sense, that's all that matters. I'm not asking you to try and do any sort of real math to make sure this space totally makes sense based off the size of the work. But if this is 70 inches wide and one is 30 inches wide, maybe make the 30-inch wide smaller than the 70 to kind of sort of visualize a real space. But from the gallery layout, we have one, we have the start of the show. 2, we have the introduction of the show. 3, we have the gallery layout. Then from here, we're going to have some sort of annotation to tell us where we are. And then we're going to start into the slides. So number 1 is my first painting with all the required information. Then right after that, I will have my synopsis and explanation of that painting and why I chose it for the show. Then I'll go to my second painting. Then I'll have the explanation of the second painting. Then I'll go to my third, and I'll have the explanation in my third. I don't really expect you to reference the gallery layout every piece. I don't think that that would be necessary unless you really feel like it is. But I'm probably going to reference it, and you'll see that I reference it every 3 to 5, or excuse me, every 3 or less, not 3 to 5. I have about 5 for the whole show. But we're trying to keep it smaller, just enough to kind of understand where we are in this space, and then from there, we move on. So now we have the second one, which we are looking at this larger sculpture. I have an image with all the information. I have my explanation of that piece. Then I go again. Another 1, 5, and 6. Here's 5, here's 6. And on this one, I chose to write more on one slide for both of these because it's kind of a diptych. They go together. So in times, you can write more for multiple pieces. And as you're seeing here, I am writing 5 to 8 sentences for each piece, whether that be the front of the show sort of explanation or each slide as I'm breaking down my images. Then we go back to the gallery layout. We go to an image, and we'll go to an explanation. So that's basically the idea of the Curate Your Exhibition. Sort of the early work of this is really coming up with the idea and starting to get images. The gallery layout itself, you could sort of plan first, but I think that what's more important is going to Google Arts and Culture and starting to dive into some artwork that either we have already been inspired by throughout the class or that you could maybe even discover as you dive into more ideas, and then go from there and design your show. Okay, so coming up on Module 4, we have 2 more modules of the normal workload, and then we have 2 more big assignments, the interpretive paper and the Curate an Exhibition. Right, so those are the most important things to focus on now. Remember, if you have not come up with where you're going to go for your interpretive paper yet, that is a very important thing. Remember that shows do have openings, but that's not the only time. If you go to the Chicago Art News link under the interpretive paper, remember the opening is kind of a party. There's usually like wine and small snacks, but the show will be open for a number of weeks after that. And the gallery will have hours that they're open. So you don't have to go to an opening, but they are more fun. And then also, COD will have some options depending on the semester you're taking, which will also be linked, which is also a good way of fulfilling that assignment parameter. So the paper and the Curate an Exhibition are the last 2 big things to think about in this class, besides sort of the normal workload of the other modules. Okay, keep up the good work, everybody. Thanks for working hard so far, and email with questions. Thanks, everybody.